It's WrestleMania week, and WrestleMania 31 is just a few days away. So Angry Marks Podcast Network fans, just one question for you. Have you signed up for WrestleWork yet? WrestleWork is the social media destination where professional wrestling fans, promotions, and wrestlers can come together, interact, and share their passion for professional wrestling. You can sign up today for free at WrestleWork.com.
The day we've all been waiting for is finally here. This is like Christmas for wrestling fans. It is WrestleMania Sunday. Good afternoon to you. I am Frank Vaughn, hosting the WrestleMania pre-show on AngryMarks.com, and I am joined by three guests, and I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves today. So, Nick, go ahead and start with you.
Yes, it is I, the one and only Nikolai, here again on the Angry Marks Podcast Network, jamming out to Blackwing Butterfly.
And that's the only song appropriate to start a day like this. Jordan?
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jordan Garber. I am the host of JGW on AngryMarks.com. I am also the co-host of the SmackDown Rundown. And, of course, the co-host of Thursday Night AMP on AngryMarks.com. I am really excited to be here tonight to do this WrestleMania pre-show.
All right. Thank you, Jordan and Rob.
I'm going to try this one more time. If opinions are like assholes, and everybody has one, I am the asshole with opinions. Just because you have an opinion doesn't mean you're right. You could go ahead and borrow mine and save yourself the time.
That was one hell of an introduction. Thank you, Rob. All right, so guys, I guess the appropriate thing to do here would be to just run down the card and let's talk about what's going on with this evening's WrestleMania. And we can start with the pre-show. Now, on the pre-show, we've got a couple of things going on. We have a Fatal 4-Way Tag Team Championship match. Who are you guys picking to win this, and does anybody really care, more importantly?
I see Tyson Kidd and Cesaro retaining the belts. Mostly because Cesaro was the last one to take a pinfall in a matchup between these teams. And, historically speaking, a lot of times WWE will give it to the person who loses on TV. So, that's why I'm going to them. And plus, they just recently got the belt. I think they're going to kind of have like a Uso run where they hold on to the belts for a while and kind of be the dominant team. Plus, they're like a really good team, so I would like to have them keep it. And to answer the final question, no, nobody cares.
Okay, well, at least you're honest about that. Jordan?
I think Tyson Kidd and Cesaro are going to retain just because of what he said. It's just that they've never won the titles. They're a great tag team. I don't see them losing the belts anytime soon. And I can't picture the Usos having another run sometime soon, as well as the New Day, which is totally out of the picture of them winning the belt, as well as Los Matadores. So I can totally see Tyson Kidd and Cesaro retaining. I think, though, a lot of people are going to care because this match has a lot of wrestling ability. Tyson Kidd and Cesaro, they always put on a great match. So I think it's going to be a good match, and more people should be excited for it.
Nikolai, what is your take on this?
This is the second year in a row for WrestleMania that there's a tag team title match, Fatal 4-Way, on the pre-show, the kickoff show. Last year they turned it into an elimination match at the last minute. and I'm surprised they haven't done that here yet. But by process of elimination, I don't see Los Matadors or any members of the New Day winning the titles. That leaves us down to the Usos versus Tyson Kidd and Cesaro, which in my money would be the much better pick out of these 4 teams. I'm going to have to give it to Kidd and Cesaro as well, because I like them. I like the way they're developing as a tag team. They're actually giving promos together. They look fluid. They have tag team moves and a finisher. So as much as I love the Usos, I think that Kidd and Cesaro would retain.
Well, and I'm going to have to agree with you guys. I don't see any reason to take the titles off of them right now.
Which is what scares me, because anytime something makes sense, you always have to question whether or not WWE will go the other way.
Right, but in this case, what you have is you have 4 teams that are well established. They, with the exception of maybe the New Day, these titles have been bounced around for several years now, and it just, I don't know. I mean, I have a problem with them making a tag team match a fatal 4-way anyway. There's just too many people involved in it. You already have a 20-man battle royal coming up after that. It's like, why do we need 8 dudes in a tag team match? It just seems like too much.
It would have made more sense for it just to be the Usos and Cesaro and Kidd. I mean, I feel like those 2 teams kind of deserved it the most.
Right, and then the other problem you have is what this basically communicates to the viewer is, listen, we don't really have a plan for this tag team division, so we're just going to throw everybody in there and let them figure, there's no story being told with this match. And as we go through this card tonight, you're going to begin to see that that's sort of a common theme for this WrestleMania, with maybe 2 or 3 exceptions. Most of these matches aren't really telling a story at all. They're just sort of there to fill the card.
Yeah, it's a big departure for when we were kids. When I was a kid, for most of my life, I've been alive for every Mania. So, 31 years old. Now, I probably didn't start remembering WrestleMania until like WrestleMania 4 or 5. But, I mean, they used to have, even the lower cards, usually kind of by WrestleMania 7 or 8, had a really good, solid story. I think only like the first couple WrestleManias just kind of had matches just to have matches, and then now it's kind of gone back to the way it originally was, like where they don't pay as much attention to the lower card matches.
Well, I think what they're trying to tell us also with this match is, hey, look, we have 4 tag teams that, can vie for the titles.
That's definitely what it is. Yeah,
just the fact that they're saying, hey, look, we actually do have a tag team division. But, there's actually more tag teams than this if you think about it, because they have the Ascension, and obviously they have the breakup of Miz and Mizdow, but they've been teaming up, and the Primetime Players had just reunited. But all those 3 teams that I mentioned are in the Battle Royal.
Right. But what I want to see happen with this tag team division is I want to see like a cogent, logical story being told. The Usos have sort of been the backbone of this division for several years now, and rightfully so. They're fantastic wrestlers. They're characters that people can get behind. They're like uber baby faces, and I thought they were going to do something very interesting with the Usos earlier this year when you saw Jey Uso getting all crazy about Naomi and The Miz and all that kind of thing. But then they just sort of abandoned that and put the Usos right back to sort of, if I had to compare them to anything, I would say they're like the tag team John Cena's. They're just the uber good guys. They're never going to break the rules to win, and they're just going to sort of, they're the go-to. When the tag team division gets into turmoil, you just throw the titles on them to stabilize everything again. And it's like, but there's no cogent story being told going forward.
The main reason why that may be is, if you remember when the Usos first came in, they were heels. Remember, they did like, we're the new generation of Samoans. We're not going to be like everybody in the past. We're going to step away from that. And that was an epic fail. So maybe they just don't have any confidence in them being heels. They just leave them as bland baby faces.
Well, the thing is, it looked like they were going to continue the feud of the Usos and Kidd and Cesaro, and because at Fastlane that was what it was. And throughout this feud, we saw what I had enjoyed more was Natalya turning heel to battle Naomi, basically, and be that caveat in the corner of Kidd and Cesaro. And it looked like that's how it was going to be for this WrestleMania. And then they just threw the Matadors and a New Day in it for whatever reason. And I don't know if I'm the only one to notice this, but has anybody else noticed that all these 4 teams, they actually have someone who's going to be ringside for their corner. You got Natalya, you have El Torito, you got Naomi, and whatever third guy from the New Day.
Yeah, the two that are wrestling, whoever the third one is, right?
Right.
I mean, you can count on Big E being one of the wrestlers, probably. If I had to guess, I would say it's going to be Big E and Kofi Kingston.
I would think
wrestling.
So. Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, you're right. I mean, but at the same time, it's like, okay, so who wins this? Well, again, this is a pretty predictable match because you're not going to put the titles back on the Usos already. You know, that's so done by now that it's like there's no new ground to break there. The New Day, I'm going to tell you, you know, I've heard rumors in the past that Triple H is really behind this tag team division and he really wants to see it take off and all this stuff. And, you know, Vince, not so much because Vince has never really been a tag team guy at all. But whoever's making the decisions about the booking for this clearly is not behind the New Day at all. And then the Los Matadores they're cartoon characters, guys. You know, nobody's taking them seriously in the ring. Obviously, nobody in the booking room is taking them seriously either. So your two choices are Kid and Cesaro or the Usos, and it's just too soon to put it back on the Usos.
I agree.
Jordan, what is your take on that?
I totally agree. I just like how you cannot see Los Matadores winning the title, and you can't see the New Day winning the title. It's just not going to happen. And since the Usos already won the belt before this last year, it's just the common sense aspect is the fact that Kid and Cesaro are going to retain the title.
Right, and I feel a little hoodwinked here by this so-called tag team division because I've been hearing all this feedback that, you know, Triple H is really behind this division. They really want to see it succeed. It's a good opportunity to really tell stories. And the fact is this tag team division is basically turned into, you know, let's just throw everybody in there that we don't know what else to do with right now.
Exactly, because there's nothing happening with those other teams right now with Matadores or New Day. What about Matadores and New Day have a feud? That would be cool, but they have nothing for them right now, so they're just going to throw them in this match just for a filler.
Well, and the thing is that the only reason the New Day really exists, this is just Frank Vaughn's theory, but the only reason the New Day exists, it seems to me, is because, you know, it was like, what the hell do we do with Big E? He's not going to be a heavyweight champion. You know, Kofi Kingston's a reliable performer in the ring, but he's not, you know, just breaking the world apart with his mic skills. It's like, so they just created the New Day to throw these three guys in there. If somebody rises to the top and really becomes a breakout star, kind of like The Rock did in the Nation of Domination, great. If not, then, you know, at least they're doing something. At least they're earning their paycheck.
Oh, exactly.
Right. So, I guess we can move on to the other event in the pre-show, and that is the 20-man Andre the Giant over the top rope battle royal. Now, I have a question about this before we start talking about who we think is going to win. And my question to you guys is, wasn't this on the main show last year and it just sort of got busted down to the pre-show this year?
Yeah, it was on the main show last year. It was the third match of the pay-per-view, and it was supposed to be on the main card this year as well, but then they bumped that to the kickoff this year. And I think the reason for that is because they want to give the other pay-per-view matches more time.
So then why don't we rename it the SD Jones Memorial Battle Royal then? I mean, if we're just going to bust it down to the pre-show.
Exactly. And I totally agree with what you just said there. It's the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. Andre the Giant is one of the greatest, if not the greatest wrestler in this business, in the history of this business. And they're putting the Memorial Battle Royal on the pre-show. No. It should always be on the main show because it's a battle royal to pay tribute to a legend. Never put that on the pre-show. Put it on the main show. Do you guys agree with what I'm saying? Or
I agree.
I do not.
Okay, go ahead.
I think battle royals are clusterfucks. They're not any fun, especially if you're a wrestler, and they tend to not be too much fun for fans until like the last 3 or 4. And it doesn't mean anything. I mean, so they get a meaningless trophy. I mean, what happened to the last winner of the Andre the Giant Battle Royal? Nothing. He's like now on the pre-show as a tag team champion. That's the most he did, and for most of the rest of the year, he did absolutely nothing. So, I mean, I'm glad that this got bumped because I didn't care about it. And basically all it is an excuse to get everybody a WrestleMania payday. That's it. Half of this roster could possibly be released Monday.
Now, Rob, I will agree to a point with what you said about battle royals. I mean, although there's a whole pay-per-view pay-per-view named after one, and it's the Royal Rumble, obviously.
Well, technically, that's slightly different because
bigger prize.
people come in 2 minutes at a time, where Battle Royals, everybody starts in the ring at the same time. So Royal Rumble paces it better and eliminates a lot of like the spacing problems that Battle Royals have. And it means a lot more because there's a more sign to it.
They usually eliminate the spacing problem, although there were several times during this year's Royal Rumble that Bray Wyatt was standing in the ring by himself, for 30 seconds at a time, it seemed like. But your point's well taken. But my problem isn't with the fact that Battle Royal got slapped down to the pre-show. My problem is we took the trouble of naming this thing after Andre the Giant, and they created this trophy in the likeness of Andre the Giant. Now, like Jordan said, this guy's one of the maybe 3 or 4 biggest names in the history of this business, okay? And now I have a problem with what happened with last year's Andre the Giant Memorial Royal, and the problem I have with it is Cesaro wins the thing, he gets the trophy, and then like a couple of 2-3 weeks later, and I don't even remember who did this now, but somebody just busted it into pieces in front of him.
Swagger.
Yeah, it was Jack Swagger,
his former tag team partner, who they were both also on the pre-show in the tag team Fatal 4-Way match.
Right. So they just shatter this trophy. Now, I'm sure it was probably a fake trophy that they ran out there just for this angle, and probably the real one is at Cesaro's house right now. I don't know. But the point is for the benefit of the viewer, they took that trophy and destroyed it. Now, you remember back when the King of the Ring used to mean something? Like Steve Austin won King of the Ring in 1996, and that launched the major portion of his career. Some could argue that it actually started the Attitude Era that revolutionized this business. Remember back when the King of the Ring used to mean something, and then next thing you know, it's like nothing. Like Booker T's winning it and calling himself King Booker for the next 3 years, and it turned into a joke after a while. But
yeah, it started being featured. It started being featured on Raw or SmackDown, and
right.
That killed me because if you really think about it, King of the Ring technically went all the way back before it became a pay-per-view. So it was around even longer. But once it became a pay-per-view, it seemed like for the most part, legitimate next level guys, that would be like the pay-per-view that kind of like Money in the Bank now. Whoever won the King of the Ring would kind of be a future star. Sometimes it did pan out like Viscera and Billy Gunn, but by and large, most of the winners of King of the Ring would go on to be somebody important.
Right, but then what it ended up turning into was basically they were having has-beens winning it, like Booker T, by 2008 or 9, whenever it was he won the thing.
Yeah, but at least he won the world title after that.
Yeah, I get that, but it took a long time for the King of the Ring to turn into a joke. This Battle Royal, it's taken less than a year. They made a joke out of it. They made a joke out of it about 3 weeks after it was over. So like I said, let's change the name of it. Let's put the name, you don't even have to name it after somebody that's dead. We can name it the Coco Beware Battle Royal. I don't care, but put it on somebody. If you're going to make a joke out of this, then name it after somebody who was a joke. Doink the Clown comes to mind.
Well, he also passed away, so I wouldn't do that.
Well, you could call it the Doink the Clown Memorial Battle Royal.
Yeah, true. I guess so.
So,
yeah, because it will look like a circus in there.
But my problem is why are you wasting Andre the Giant's name on something that you clearly meant to be a joke?
Because I don't think that was their intention. But then when Cesaro didn't work out, when they kind of lost him in the shuffle, I think that's when they realized, okay, this isn't going to be what we wanted it to be. Screw it.
All right. So now that we've discussed the viability of this match, let's talk about who you think is going to win it. Because what's interesting to me is there are a lot of people who don't yet have a household name that are in this match this year.
Well, to give a list of everybody's in it so far, we got Adam Rose, Big Show, Curtis Axel, who's still on his stupid campaign that he's in the Royal Rumble, which I absolutely hate. Mizdow and The Miz, which they're going to have their little blow up to a feud. That one I really can't wait to see. I'm more interested in seeing what happens there as opposed to who wins this match, if that tells you anything. But for me, I would say either Ryback or, you know what? That's the only guy I can think of, Ryback, for winning this Battle Royal.
And aren't there some NXT guys that are in this thing also?
Oh, yeah. Hideo Itami won a tournament at WrestleMania Access, and he's actually going to be in it.
Honest to God, that's who I wish would win this thing.
That's
because
you just can't put a guy from NXT onto the Memorial Battle Royal and just have him win it. Of course he's not going to win it, but it's good to see him in it, that's for sure.
I mean, my argument here, though, is why not use this match to, like, make a name for somebody instead of giving it to somebody who already has one, like Ryback.
You know what? I wish that every guy that was in that little tournament was in it. Hideo Itami, Finn Balor, Adrian Neville, and Tyler Breeze. All four of these guys were trying to get in this match. I wish all four were in this match. That way they all can get showcased and everybody can see what NXT is about if they're not familiar with it, which people should be because they sold out in San Jose in 2 hours without one match even being announced. That should tell you something about the NXT product.
Well, but back to Rob's point, though, can you really showcase wrestling ability in a battle royal? I mean, when you got 20 dudes in the ring all trying to throw each other over the top rope, is there really a lot of wrestling?
Not until the ring's cleared out.
Not wrestling ability, but like they can at least get a little bit more exposure.
I get that. Okay. So, I mean, okay, let me go back to the start here. Jordan, who are you picking to win this thing?
I'm going to agree with Nick, and I'm going to pick Ryback to win.
All right, and Rob?
Big Show.
You're picking Big Show.
Yeah, I think WWE's just gonna give it to Big Show just to troll the crowd.
Why? So they can chant more about how he needs to retire?
Yep. Dude, I'm being dead serious. I mean, think about it. In the rest of the card tonight, how many heels do you really anticipate winning? There's not going to be too many chances, so I predict like what they're going to do is Kane and Big Show are going to tease that they're going to turn on each other, and then what's going to happen is they're going to shake hands, and then they're just going to eliminate everybody, and then Kane eliminates himself. Big Show wins.
They've teased that, though. Big Show and Kane, they've teased that like on 3 different occasions since the Royal Rumble, and including that match itself. And one interesting caveat, you talk about Big Show winning. He mentioned on the Hall of Fame red carpet broadcast last night that he has never won a single battle royal in WWE.
That's interesting. Now, here's what I could see happening. I could see Big Show winning the thing, although that literally means nothing to him. And he would be like the worst he and Kane are the 2 worst people in that match to pick to win it. Just simply because these guys are multiple-time former world champions. These guys have each been in the business almost 20 years apiece. In Big Show's case, longer than that. And it's like, what the hell would either one of them benefit from winning this thing? And I will say this. If either one of them wins it, then I'm going to know that Triple H didn't book this match. I'm going to know Vince McMahon decided himself who was going to win this match.
Like I said, I'm more interested on the Miz and Mizdow storyline and what Hideo Itami can do.
Well, okay, and you bring up a good point about Miz and Mizdow. I mean, I think we can just go ahead and bank on the fact that they're going to turn on each other tonight.
Guaranteed.
I mean,
Exactly.
The Miz has had his WrestleMania moment. He defeated John Cena at WrestleMania 27. I mean, he had to have help from The Rock to do it, but either way, he defeated John Cena at WrestleMania. He's had his moment. I think it's time for Damien Sandow to have his moment.
Yes, and thank you. I wish he goes back to Damien Sandow.
Well, he will after tonight. I'm almost dead certain of it.
When you see all these things on Raw of Miz and Mizdow and all of they're arguing and they're feuding, and it's going past the other pay-per-views before the WrestleMania, it's going to happen at WrestleMania. Mizdow is going to turn on the Miz or vice versa, and it's going to be sorry about that. It's going to be really entertaining to see. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens between these two.
Well, it's very important that it happen a certain way, okay? The Miz has already turned on Mizdow. He's already, insulting him and calling him names and without me, you would be nothing. Basically, honestly, if you think about this is like a retread of what we got with the Miz and Alex Riley like 4 years ago.
Oh, yeah, and that was brought up too.
Right. I mean, this is almost a dead ringer for what we saw 3 or 4 years ago with that. Okay. Sadly, Alex Riley wound up being, he wound up being Zack Ryder. But anyway, it's very important that Damien Sandow turn on the Miz. It's been building for a long time. You saw him get right in Miz's face a couple weeks ago and then back off and apologize when he clearly should not have. So it's coming, and it's going to be very important for the honestly, I would like to see Damien Sandow win this Battle Royal by dumping the Miz over the ropes. The Miz ordering him to get out of the ring so that he can be the winner, and then he turns around to celebrate with the crowd and winds up getting dumped over. That would be the perfect way to end this for me.
And he would get his WrestleMania moment, and it would be a feel-good moment.
And it would also be a great lead-in to a lengthy feud between these two because you know that's coming.
Yeah.
So I actually am going to disagree with you guys, and I'm going to pick Damian Sandow to win this Battle Royal.
Fair enough.
All right. Now we can move on to the main card, and I have one question for you guys as we move on to that, and that is, which match leads off this pay-per-view, or has that already been released? Is it going to be the U.S. title match or the Intercontinental title match?
Sadly, I think it would be the Intercontinental match, because you know how they like to get that out of the way quickly. But I don't see the U.S. title starting, though.
Yeah, that's a real safe bet.
Well, because, honest to God, I mentioned earlier in the broadcast how only maybe three or four matches at the most on this card, and this is a loaded card, by the way. They're going to get a lot done tonight. You got 4 hours of main show, 2 hours of kickoff show, so you've got 6 hours of wrestling happening tonight. Okay, now I mentioned though that out of all that 6 hours of wrestling that's going to happen, only 3 or 4 of these matches really have at least made an attempt to tell a story. And the Intercontinental title match is not really one of these. I mean, unless you include, Wade Barrett getting his belt jacked every week by somebody different, a story.
Well, I would have to say that it kind of is a story because all of these, it started with Dean Ambrose. He's the one that had made the proclamation that he wants to be Intercontinental Champion. And I've mentioned this in the past on the SmackDown Rundown, where I said, finally there's a guy that says he wants to be champion, that he goes into the WWE headquarters and looks on the wall and sees former Intercontinental Champions and wants his face next to them. It doesn't matter if what you think about how the storylines played out. I just love the fact that someone wants to be the Intercontinental Champion. And then you got all these guys vying for this title because they're trying to bring prestige back to it. And I know we've heard them say this many, many times over and over again, but this time I'd like to believe it.
Well, there's only one guy in this match that can bring any prestige to it, and that is Dean Ambrose.
And Dean Ambrose and Daniel Bryan are the only...
Or Daniel Bryan, right.
Dean Ambrose, Daniel Bryan, and R-Truth are the only guys who have never been Intercontinental Champions.
Right. Now, R-Truth is not really going to bring a lot of prestige to anything. I'm sorry, he's just not.
No, but he'll bring the comedy, though. He'll
bring the comedy, and he'll make the match, and he's a good wrestler. I mean, he'll make the match good. But it's like these Money in the Bank matches. There's like 7, 8 dudes in the match, and that there's really only like 2 of them that have any chance of winning the thing. The rest of the guys are in there for the high spots and the oh my god moments, and then they're going to get douched out sooner or later. Like Kofi Kingston's always one of those guys, even though he's in the tag team title match probably tonight. John Morrison was always one of those dudes that you knew was going to really throw the high spots, but there was no way in hell he was going to win. Right,
but it's like when it comes to the Intercontinental title, I think we can all safely agree that R-Truth isn't going to win this, but he's actually has his own storyline going that he's afraid of heights. So you're going to see that in the match. He's going to climb up to the second or third rung and look down and be afraid. Hell, Santino Marella did the same damn thing, and he's been featured in a lot more ladder matches than R-Truth, and he's been Intercontinental Champion. He had the Intercontinental he won it when he debuted on Raw. So, I mean, you can't rule out that the comedy guy being in this match isn't going to bring something to it.
Oh, exactly. I completely agree.
He'll add something to the match, but yeah, like you said, it's a no-brainer that there's no way in hell he's going to win it. Sadly, and I want to get all you guys' thoughts on this, but sadly, word's pretty much already out, isn't it? I mean, doesn't Daniel Bryan pretty much have to win this match?
Yep.
In the crowd's eyes, yes.
But I mean, he's going to, isn't he?
Well, on Jericho's podcast, he even said basically that he sees bringing prestige to the IC belt as a nice thing that, maybe he can set his career to. He was the world champion. Fate kind of took that away from him. And he said, he mentioned like a story about how HBK told him that, he didn't want to come back and wrestle Bryan because the student versus teacher story had been told so many times, and he was looking to do things that haven't been done yet. And Daniel Bryan is like, how often do you get a chance to bring back the level of importance to a belt? I mean, that's not something everybody can do. That's something only he thinks he can do. And so, I mean, saying something like that, I mean, I think that indicates that maybe Bryan probably at least spoke up and said, hey, if I'm going to do this and, put Reigns over, you got to do me a favor and give me the Intercontinental belt, and I'll try to bring it up, level so that we could give it to other guys and make them.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
And I like that idea. I really do. I like the fact that you're putting an established living legend, which I would say Daniel Bryan is at this point. I mean, this guy he's a living legend of the ring already. I mean, the guy's only been in he's been in the business a long time, but he's only been in the WWE for 4 or 5 years. But I mean,
can you picture him being like a 6-month champion or something like that? Beating like Bad News Barrett and beating Luke Harper, but like giving really good matches, giving them a shine, and then maybe slowly start to bring up some of the NXT guys, like Finn Balor and stuff like that, and maybe him like jobbing out to Finn Balor and like giving him like an IC title run or something like that. I mean, you could do a lot with using Daniel Bryan as like the stepping stone on the IC level.
Absolutely, but what you're basically saying at this point then is that Daniel Bryan has been relegated to the role of gatekeeper.
Well, right. He said that basically that's the way he sees himself. That he doesn't have a lot of drive to be like Punk, where he wants to be the last guy on the card. He'd rather make stars so that he basically said he's a better team player. He'd rather make other stars so that everybody has more people to work. I mean, that's out of his own mouth. That's the way he sees himself. So, I mean, Triple H and Vince McMahon probably agree with that statement.
Well, if you're going to mention NXT, of course Triple H is going to agree with it because the NXT is his baby right now. But when it comes to Daniel Bryan, I mean, he's the number one pick. He's the lead in the polls on who would win this ladder match, and obviously everybody's going to pick Daniel Bryan, and I actually would pick him too. I wouldn't say that, let him pass it off to an NXT guy, at least not this soon. And as Frank mentioned, he'd basically be a gatekeeper or a transitional champion. But I can see a long title run with Daniel Bryan. I think what we're going to see also is Bryan and Ziggler. Now, Ziggler has wanted a one-on-one WrestleMania match with Daniel Bryan ever since the Royal Rumble. And he's sort of getting his spot to face Bryan, although there are 5 other guys in this match. Now, they've had a one-on-one match on SmackDown during the whole gauntlet a couple weeks ago. And
it was fantastic. I mean, I love that match. That match was awesome.
And they had another one-on-one match on Monday Night Raw the week after. And it was fantastic. Yet Dolph Ziggler went over both times. So Daniel Bryan has no problem and I don't like this term, but I'm going to say laying down or letting somebody else get the win. He has no problem doing that because he likes to let the other guys go over, as Rob mentioned. But as for this, I see him winning the title and maybe carrying it for a longer time. Maybe he holds the title for as long as he was supposed to hold the world title last year before he got injured.
And in the wrestling world, they call that doing business, doing the job is what we call it. But think back for a minute to the 90s. Does anybody remember, I mentioned the Nation of Domination earlier, but does anybody remember what really made The Rock a star? Like what sort of the process he went through to get there?
The Ken Shamrock feud, in my opinion, made him over the IC belt.
There was that, and he also feuded with Triple H. He feuded with, everybody when you think of The Rock, you automatically think of Stone Cold Steve Austin and their feud over the world title. But when you really think back about it.
Triple H, yeah. Triple H was his big time feud. I mean, they had some historic matches over the IC belt.
Exactly. And that's what made The Rock a star, was really coveting that Intercontinental Championship and really busting his ass to get it and having to feud over that for a long time. I remember Chris Jericho talking about how all he ever wanted to be when he was a kid was the Intercontinental Champion. Like that was his thing. That was the belt he coveted more than anything. Now he wound up being a 6-time world champion after that. But I mean, what that guy really coveted growing up was to be Intercontinental Champion. That belt really used to mean something. And right now, frankly, it doesn't. But I agree that putting it on an established star like Daniel Bryan will fix that problem. Here's my only problem with that, though. WrestleMania? Why put a match like this with such a predictable outcome on this card? Why not settle that issue at the Rumble or even at Fastlane, for God's sake? And that way Daniel Bryan could feud with Dolph Ziggler at WrestleMania.
My answer to that is I think they the only other match that these guys would have then had is the Battle Royal. And I think that they realized that Dean Ambrose, Dolph Ziggler, Daniel Bryan deserve a little bit better than that.
I think Daniel Bryan does. I think Dolph Ziggler does. I think Dean Ambrose does. I'm not sure about R-Truth.
I mean, the only thing that else they could have done is maybe put Dolph Ziggler versus Daniel Bryan for like no reason as a singles match. I mean, I would love that match, but I mean that's the only other thing they could have done. So I think there would have been no story for that, though.
No, what I'm saying is have Daniel Bryan win this Intercontinental title, even in a ladder match if you must, at a different pay-per-view, and that way he and Ziggler can feud over it, and maybe even throw Ambrose in there in a three-way or something. I don't know, but have a match with intrigue. Okay, at WrestleMania over this belt instead of an almost foregone conclusion like what we have right now.
You want to talk intrigue? I'm really intrigued that they didn't add, for the first part, they only have 7 guys in there, which is an odd number, a random number to have in a ladder match. You know they always like even numbers. I'm also intrigued that even though the match flopped at Fastlane between Stardust and Goldust, I'm really surprised they didn't throw Goldust into this ladder match as well. Instead, Goldust is now in the Battle Royal and has nothing to do with Stardust, or that Stardust is in this match and not in the Battle Royal, where they could have settled it, had their own little mini feud going in either match.
I think they wanted to leave Mizdow and Miz to kind of have that spot. And 2, I mean, the strong internet rumor is the 8th guy is Sheamus, so.
Well, that's true. Although I would have thrown Sheamus in the Battle Royal if that was still on the main card. But as of right now, I haven't heard anything of what Sheamus' role is going to be.
And you know what? I'm glad you brought up Sheamus. And I mean, is it a mistake to keep him off TV until WrestleMania and have everybody just guess what the hell he's going to do? Or should they have maybe got something going for him prior to this?
I think they should have done something prior.
I think keeping him off is smart because, I mean, he's really not he doesn't really bring a lot to the table. I mean, we've seen him as a heel. It was an okay, bland run. We've seen him as a baby, meh. So, I mean, like, the longer you delay him being on television, the more people miss him.
So then why debut him at WrestleMania when he has absolutely nothing to do with anybody right now? And we don't even know if he's going to come back as a heel or a face. I've heard rumors that they're going to make him a heel again. What's that, Jordan?
But if Sheamus debuts at WrestleMania, you don't know what's not debut, but returns at WrestleMania, he can make an impact, and maybe he could start a new feud and do something unpredictable.
Yeah, but I think they could also have done something prior to him and maybe give us something to be excited for, because they haven't even mentioned when Sheamus is coming back. They didn't even say, oh, Sheamus returns at WrestleMania. They just keep saying Sheamus returns. So you have no idea what he's going to do. And I think having him return at WrestleMania with no prior announcement of what he's going to do does not bring any kind of intrigue on what he's going to do, because at this point, people would have forgotten about him. And if you had done something with him prior to WrestleMania, like, oh, okay, Sheamus is going to do this. If you have Sheamus, his promo, like, interrupt somebody or interrupt a match or whatever, then you kind of have an idea of where he's going, and then you can anticipate him showing up. But as of right now, I don't think anybody even cares or remembers, and I don't mean that negatively at all.
Giving Sheamus the microphone is a bad idea, fella.
Not the microphone. I'm just talking about a promo, like a video.
And I like Sheamus, but I don't love Sheamus. And it's like, Sheamus is one of those dudes that was really well set up when there were 2 world titles.
Mm-hmm.
But now that there's only one and it's only on TV like every 3 months right now, there's really not much you can do with him, is there?
I liked Sheamus' world heavyweight title reign. I liked him as the baby face, was going against Big Show and all that. I loved that storyline right there. I didn't really care for Sheamus as a heel because it was just barbaric and really was serving no purpose just to beat people up. He actually connected with a lot of the fans when he was a babyface, in my opinion.
Yeah, and all we got out of him as a heel was John Cena cracking wise about him being a human jar of mayonnaise, and I'm with you. Sheamus is one of those guys. He's a good utility player that, if a bunch of people get injured, then you throw a world title on him, as long as you have 2 of them, that is. You throw a world title on him just to keep it warm until somebody more important comes back, like if Orton's out for a little while, or, back in the day when Undertaker was still wrestling semi full time. And okay, so Sheamus as world champion made sense at that point. mean, you got to remember, that was a dark time back when Khali got a world title run. Jack Swagger got a world title run. Because you had 2 world titles and you had to keep it fresh here and there. So that's when Sheamus was well set up. But now that there's 1 world title and it's on lockdown at the moment, you got these 2 mid-card titles that all of a sudden you've got a crowded scene around the Intercontinental and U.S. titles. And where does Sheamus really fit into all of that?
I guess I would be mildly interested in seeing him and Brock Lesnar eventually meet up for the title with Brock winning, obviously. I'd be mildly interested in that. But other than
Why?
that, Sheamus does have size, so it'd be a believable match to feed to Lesnar. It'd be a decent guy for Lesnar to just kind of steamroll, to kind of keep things interesting. I'm not saying it'd be a big money match, but I'd be mildly interested in seeing it.
Well, they're running all these promos about Sheamus returns and the crowd goes mild. It's just like, oh, okay, whatever. We knew that would happen sooner or later, but anyway, what's John Cena and Rusev doing? Which brings me to our next match, the U.S. title match. This match right here, maybe more than any of the rest of them on this card, has done a fantastic job of telling a real story.
Mm-hmm.
This is people shit all over John Cena a lot, and they talk about how they're sick of him being rammed down their throats and yada, yada, yada. I got all that, all right? I've been hearing that for 10 years now. But this match has probably the best story out of all the matches on the card. And they've really poured a lot into telling this story. I'll give you one example. Where's Lana been the last few weeks? Is she going to show up tonight? Who the hell knows?
Well, technically, Lana's been shooting a movie, so they had Rusev yell at her for accepting the match with John Cena to write her off of TV, and apparently she might be back at WrestleMania. But I like that Rusev got mad at her for that, just in storyline, and this is really intriguing because you have Rusev in his first WrestleMania match, and he's the United States champion, and he still has not been pinned or made to submit. Then you got John Cena here, who has so long of a tenure here. It's been 10 years. 10 years ago, John Cena won the WWE Championship for the first time. A year before that, his first match at WrestleMania, he won the United States Championship.
Mm-hmm.
So this is really interesting here, and the fact that Cena won the U.S. title 11 years ago, which was his first title in WWE, and ever since he's been WWE champion, he's had that title forever. Now, he's won a couple of tag team titles here and there with Shawn Michaels, Batista, and The Miz, and even David Otunga, of all people, but he's never won any other title of the mid-card since.
Right, so he hasn't had the Intercontinental Championship.
Yeah, he's never had that title. But, ever since the WWE title, he's always been the top guy, always been number one. And for him to go back into a United States Championship match, first of all, it just blew my mind that this was ever happening for the title. But, geez, this one is hard to call because you want to have Rusev come out strong, and a loss to John Cena really isn't going to hurt him.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
If Daniel Bryan does win the IC belt, does that kind of give away the ending for this match if this match is after?
Not at all. Not to me.
No.
Because, Cena winning would be kind of a similar story, wouldn't it?
Well, I almost, but then you also have to think about how much importance would that U.S. title have if Rusev were to defeat John Cena at WrestleMania. John Cena doesn't lose at WrestleMania very often.
No.
Okay, and when he does lose, he never loses clean. Okay, like when he lost to The Miz at WrestleMania 27, The Rock had to go out there and hit him with a rock bottom for The Miz to win that match. So it's like for if Rusev were to go over John Cena at WrestleMania, that's a big freaking deal.
Yeah, it is.
And John Cena can be. See, John Cena is different from Daniel Bryan in that Daniel Bryan, to be a gatekeeper, probably needs to have that Intercontinental Championship. For John Cena to be a gatekeeper, he just needs to be John Cena. Right?
I guess. I just wanted to ask the question. I kind of see them kind of being somewhat similar. I just wanted to hear your guys' takes on it.
And see, that's what makes this match so awesome is that there is no clear-cut outcome to this. It's like, okay, does John Cena go over and bring the U.S. title back to the U.S., so to speak? Does he give it back that, I mean, he's basically the WWE's version of Captain America here, right? And, with all apologies to Jack Swagger, John Cena is the real American in this match. And it's like, if John Cena were to win and restore the luster of the U.S. Championship and bring it back to U.S. soil, so to speak, that would be a big deal. If Rusev were to defeat John Cena at WrestleMania, that would be a big deal. And I don't really know which way this is going to go. If I had to guess, I would say probably Cena's going to go over in this match. But actually, I would almost argue that because Daniel Bryan's likely going to go over in the IC title match, that it might almost make better sense to have Rusev retain.
Well, see, this is the interesting thing. I mean, do you have Rusev lose his first match in WWE at WrestleMania and after a whole year of competing? Or do you have John Cena bring hope, so to speak, back to the U.S. by winning the title? Do you have John Cena win a mid-card title again? Do you have John Cena be the first man to defeat Rusev? There's all these questions come into play. I wouldn't even have any way of answering, and I don't even know if I want to answer any of those questions.
Well, and it is important to point out that technically speaking, Rusev has lost tons of matches.
Right, but that's why I said earlier by pin or submission.
Right. I mean, he's been disqualified for matches. He's not been the winner in battle royals. He's been in the Royal Rumble and gotten dumped over. He's been counted out before. I mean, but to be pinned or submitted for the first time ever, is this the place or the time to do that?
Yes.
I would argue that it's not. And the reason why is because this should have happened over a year ago.
Well, I think, to be honest, Rusev has only been here not even a full year. And I think he debuted the night after WrestleMania. But if you're going to defeat a guy who has been undefeated by pinfall or submission, it has to be WrestleMania.
Yeah, and I really wish it hadn't gone this long. I thought they had a golden opportunity when he was feuding with Jack Swagger for the first time to drop a match but win the feud, okay? I don't like these Goldberg / Umaga type undefeated runs to start somebody's career. I don't like them at all because the longer they go, the more awkward it is to try to figure out when to end it.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, they dropped the ball there, and honestly, Rusev should have had the United States Championship from day one, and that's when you make him, you make the real American, Jack Swagger, that's when you have Swagger, the real American, defeat the United States Champion held by a Russian on July 4th. That's when it should have happened.
And then he can turn around the next month and drop it right back to him and lose the feud. I didn't care about Swagger winning the feud, but he should have at least taken one of those 18 matches they had.
Yeah.
Okay, just one. That way we go ahead and get that loss out of the way for Rusev. He ends up crushing Swagger, and you lose a battle, you win the war, then we can all move on, and now we don't have this problem of when is Rusev going to suffer his first real loss. Because now you're in this, it's the proverbial booking yourself into a corner. Now Rusev has gone so long without losing a match that it's like it has to happen sooner or later. This guy can't stay undefeated his entire career, And I'm sorry, it's never going to reach the level of Undertaker losing WrestleMania last year. Rusev is never going to reach that level as a wrestler, okay? He's just not. But then again, neither is anyone else, okay? Mm-hmm. So they really should have made him drop a match early in his tenure. You can make him almost undefeated easier than you can make him undefeated for this long.
And it kind of...
I'm sorry, Nikolai. Not to mention, there is the old age problem of how Goldberg. When you go undefeated that long, people see you a certain way. So when the loss finally does come, it seems to be noticed a lot more and seems to kind of emphasize that loss a lot more in the eyes of fans, which kind of hurts the wrestler, to be honest.
As Frank was talking and mentioning that he should have lost at some point in the last year, it kind of makes you think that he's going to lose here at WrestleMania because number one, it is WrestleMania, and that's when the big things happen. And they've mentioned many times on commentary that John Cena knows how to win the big one. He knows how to win at WrestleMania. He has a impressive streak. He's only had maybe 2 or 3 losses at a WrestleMania. So it kind of, I don't want to say it's giving it away, but you kind of have to see that it's leaning towards that way.
Yeah, and I think Cena almost has to win tonight just because there needs to be that really big feel-good moment. And like I said, this is this may be the only match on the card that has gone to the lengths it has to tell an actual story. I mean, let's move along to some other matches just to illustrate my point.
Cena has to win. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
You have to win. I agree.
Yeah, but let's move along to some other matches just to illustrate my point. Let's look at this Divas tag team match.
Should have been a Divas championship match.
The only reason this match exists is to further the animosity between Paige and AJ.
That's why it should have been a championship match.
But see, here's my problem with this. You know, this Divas, the give Divas a chance movement and all this other stuff, and you got Total Divas over here making tons of cash for Vince, and I get all that. But the problem is first of all, your champion, Nikki Bella, is sort of an afterthought in this match. And her sister's an afterthought in the whole scheme of things. But the champion is an afterthought in this match. This whole match is about getting animosity, getting heat between Paige and AJ, there's two problems here. Number one, not only are you completely negating the importance of the Divas Championship, and not only are you minimizing the importance of the person holding it, but then secondly, what you're doing is you're taking us back 6 months in time. We're going backwards now. We're going right back to the only thing worth talking about in the Divas division is Paige versus AJ. This has been going on for the better part of a year now, and we're going back to that and using this match to get there.
Here's the thing. You're at WrestleMania. It should be a Divas Championship match. They should have made one of those two a champion, and they should have had a feud from there. And, Frank, I agree with you. We are going backwards into time, and we're not going towards the future. We're going back. We keep on sidetracking. I'm just agreeing with Nikolai as well. It should be a championship match, and it's a tag match. That in the first part is a bummer to me.
Now, I'm going to tell you, the only way that this would be worth it to me at all would be if, okay, so the predictable happens and Paige and AJ turn on each other and the Bellas eke out a win. And then they're all sort of laying in the ring because they're all exhausted from beating the hell out of each other. And then Charlotte comes out there and hits every one of them with her finishing move and stands tall. That would be a moment for me.
Well, that'll probably happen on Monday Night Raw. You know how they always make the debuts the night after WrestleMania.
Right, but
you don't think there's any chance at all that Brie turns on Nikki and costs the Bellas the match?
That's why this should have been a championship match. It should have been Nikki versus Brie versus AJ versus Paige. You could tell different stories here. AJ and Paige don't get along. Brie costs Nikki the title, or they don't get along. Or even just one-on-one match, and, Nikki versus AJ, and then Brie costs Nikki the title and the match.
But that happened already. Brie and Nikki should have been feuding 3, 4, 5 months ago. When Nikki made Brie her slave or whatever, there should have been a payoff to that, but there wasn't. When her period of servitude ended after 30 days, they just became sisters again, and that was the end of it. They should have had a feud.
I know.
That's the problem with this match. Either way, you go back in time.
Yeah, there's no good ending to this match, and the title's not even at stake, so what's the point? Like, there's so much going on tonight that why are we even making time for this?
Exactly.
Why isn't this on the pre-show?
Because they're stuck, because they have to put it on the main card because of the heat that they've gotten about how they handle Divas.
But the only heat they're getting is from the Divas themselves. Who cares? You want a paycheck or don't you?
What bugs me is how we have the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal on a pre-show, but we have this Divas match, this tag team match that, honestly, I'll be honest, doesn't mean much at all because it's not a championship match at WrestleMania. They should have put that match on the pre-show instead of the Battle Royal. That's ridiculous having this match on the main card.
Or actually, I would propose swapping this one for the tag team title match, because at least the titles are at stake in that one. Why not put that one on the main card and put this crap on the nobody's really watching this card?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
The only credit I will give this is the fact that there is a Divas match at WrestleMania, and with the Battle Royal moving to the pre-show, the only positive I can look at this is that they will be giving Divas a chance, and I could see this getting some time. These Divas will be getting some time in the match, because we've seen Nikki versus Paige and Nikki versus AJ in the past couple weeks on Raw having 2 segment matches, commercial break in between, and they've actually had more time in the ring. So that's why that's the positive I can give this match, is that they're going to have some time in the ring.
Yeah, and I admire you for even trying to put a positive spin on this because this whole thing, it's kind of like the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. It seems like that whole thing only exists to watch Damian Sandow turn on The Miz. This match only exists, it seems like, to watch Paige and AJ turn on each other again.
Yep, and that's why the Bellas have to win.
Yeah, so anyway, that just illustrates my point that a lot of these matches aren't even really bothering to tell a cogent story. Let's go ahead and move along. Let's talk about some of the more important matches. Bray Wyatt and The Undertaker. Should this match even be happening, and what is the likely outcome?
I'll start. I don't want this match to happen. I don't like the idea of Undertaker having a match after losing his first WrestleMania match. I don't think that this match really needed to happen, other than the fact that they wanted to get Bray Wyatt over. And I just really don't think the storyline is that strong for me to even care that this match is happening. And I mean no disrespect to either man, because I think they could have done something a lot different with Bray Wyatt, or just have Undertaker retire. And he just looked so broken and run down last year. It worried me of him getting back in the ring, and the fact that he lost his first WrestleMania match last year, what's the point?
Yeah, the guy goes out on his Shield last year, and now he's back again for what? What is he trying to accomplish here?
And I like Undertaker, and it just hurts me to say this, but he should have not had another match this year. And if so, have it against Sting. Shoot.
Well, no, God, no. That's the last thing we need is two 50-years.
That's what people seem to be indicating, is that the only reason he's coming back this year is to come back next year so he can retire in Texas.
But that's, okay, obviously from the physical standpoint, nobody wants to see this match. Because it's like, Bray Wyatt's a good wrestler, but can he carry a broken 50-year-old man? I don't know. No. I guess we're going to find out tonight, but I don't think so.
This could be the worst match on the card. I guarantee it.
And Bray Wyatt is quick.
Yeah, but everybody thinks that, Undertaker's had a year to heal, so probably he's okay now. Well, that's what we thought last year when he took a year off to heal. And that's what we thought the year before last. And his last great match was that last match he had with Shawn Michaels.
Agree.
Those two matches he had with Triple H after that were junk matches. They were just beating the hell out of each other.
They're overrated by a lot.
Well, they were just beating the hell out of each other with chairs and sledgehammers and trash can lids. That's all. It was like watching ECW in the 90s, these two.
And a Hell in a Cell.
Right. They weren't what I would call wrestling at all, honest to God. And that match last year with Brock Lesnar, that was just an abortion, okay?
Well, that match was bad, but it's remembered more fondly because the streak ended. That's why it kind of sticks out in your mind. If Brock didn't go over, you wouldn't remember that match at all.
But my problem is, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I just want to say my problem with it is that Taker lost. Taker and Triple H had the end of an era match. Okay, we're thinking, okay, this is the end of an era. We're going to see the last of these guys really competing in the ring. Fine. But then they moved on to CM Punk. Okay, fine. And now Undertaker is 20-0. That's a really good record to drop it all. Undertaker should just stop. He's won 20 matches in a row. And then they move on to 21-1. Or, I'm sorry, 21-0. Which I'm kind of getting my numbers mixed up, but you guys get where I'm going. Like, you go from end of an era to 20-0, and then 21-0 is like, all right, when's it going to stop? 21-1, okay, that's when it's going to stop. Nope, he has another match.
Yeah, I just don't understand what the motivation for Undertaker. Maybe, if he wanted to come back and get his loss back, then he should be facing Brock Lesnar again. Although nobody wants to see that.
Nope.
Okay, even at 37 years old, Brock Lesnar is in really good shape right now for WWE.
Their matches back in 2002 were a lot better.
Well, yeah, because Undertaker wasn't 50 years old then.
Exactly.
And so, I think Brock, as much as he tries, I think Brock was a little bit better ring condition, and I think he was a little bit more willing to kind of wrestle. Whereas, now it seems like he's transitioned more to like a brawling style.
Yeah, and that's fine. They've booked him as the dominant, the beast incarnate, and the machine, and that's great. We can get into Brock Lesnar again in a minute when we talk about his match, but I feel bad for Bray Wyatt in this match because there's no good that can come from this. For him.
I mean, he's had to cut promos to get somebody who's not there for like a month straight. I mean, at this point, I mean, he's been stuck cutting the same promo for over a month. I mean, and that's why a lot of people have kind of chilled out on him. I mean, they've made him strong going into this match, and then they ruined it by not having Taker at least appear a little bit. And all they really did was the same promo over and over and over and over again, slowly revealing that he was talking about Taker. Put Bray in a very bad spot. And Bray's, I mean, I've only heard like one person like bring up a scenario that Bray could possibly win. I mean, a lot of people were predicting Taker to win because he kind of has to get his win back. And that puts Bray in a bad spot again. I mean, I know JR and his fat slant mouth wants to say that, like, marks don't understand that you don't need to win to get over. But, I mean, Bray is the future. Bray is the now. Bray is very talented, needs a huge thing to put on his board. Beating Taker even the year after Brock did it would still be a huge boost to his career, and that's the only way it should happen, but that's not going to happen because I just don't see Taker losing twice in a row. I just don't.
Well, and I would edit JR's statement by saying this. You may not need to win all the time to get over, but you need to win once in a while. And Bray Wyatt has not had a good year.
Mm-mm.
I mean, he really hasn't.
No,
at
well,
all.
I have to disagree. Bray Wyatt has had a good year. That's why he was strong at the Royal Rumble, and he was beating every opponent that was placed in front of him on Raw and SmackDown.
But then
just so that they can make him look strong for this match.
Yeah, but look at his pay-per-view record over the last year.
The last year, I will agree.
Yeah, his pay-per-view record is atrocious since he faced John Cena. And it's like...
Lost at Mania last year, too.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, so now here we are at WrestleMania, and let's say Bray Wyatt loses. Okay, yeah, that's what he always does at a pay-per-view. So that doesn't help him. And
Frank,
not only that, but guess what? You just lost to a 50-year-old guy that looked like a duct-taped bag of bones a year ago.
Yep.
Now, Frank, I got to ask you the same question that you had asked earlier when it came to Sheamus. I got to ask you, do you think it was wise bringing Undertaker, having him return at WrestleMania and not in any other shows prior to it?
No, I think they needed to bring him out a few weeks ago to at least, acknowledge to the crowd. Maybe he didn't need to tell Bray Wyatt anything, but at least tell first of all, I would feel better about this match if I had seen Undertaker since last year and known that he can at least walk to the ring without a walker with a little tennis balls on the bottom of it. Okay? I would feel better just having laid eyes on him maybe just once to know that he can still walk to the ring, let alone put on a match. Okay? So for us to at least see him sometime between the last WrestleMania and, because I'm telling you guys, the last time we saw him, they were pretty much dragging him out of the arena by his tongue, okay? And that's okay, and I don't think that was just him selling the fact that Brock Lesnar beat the hell out of him. I really think he hurt himself in that match. I'll forever, I mean, this is just my theory, but I think last year's match, Undertaker was supposed to win, and I think they made the call mid-match to switch the result because he was done.
I don't know. I think it was all along last year. But regardless, bottom line for me on this, because I really have nothing else to add to it, this is probably my least anticipated match to watch at WrestleMania this year.
I agree.
Yeah, this is like watching your
Undertaker.
This is like watching your 65-year-old dad still trying to play touch football. It just, it's just sad. It really is. And like I said, no good outcome for Bray Wyatt. Either he loses to a 50-year-old guy that can barely walk anymore, or he beats him and everybody's like, well, yeah, he's 50. I mean, so it's like there's nothing to be gained for Bray Wyatt from winning this.
I got nothing.
All right. So
not even a prediction. I have nothing.
Let's move on to the next match that just frankly confuses me, and that is Triple H and Sting. And once again, they've made an attempt to tell a story leading into this match. I just don't think it's a good story.
It's been incoherent on top of that. I mean, it started out as WWE versus WCW, which was very confusing because it's like 15 years now. And then Sting kind of came out and kind of threw that away and said, 15 years, man. I'm not here about that. I'm here just to take down a bully, which, I mean, made way more sense. But, I mean, they kind of trashed the previous 3 weeks of TV.
Yeah, I mean, Stephanie's been cutting promos for weeks now about how he's jealous that WWF/E defeated WCW, and he's bitter about it. And first of all, And listen, I get it. They're not going to acknowledge his TNA career, but it does ignore the fact that Sting has been wrestling for the last 15 years. Okay, they act like he's been in hiding all this time, biding his time, waiting to serve his dish of revenge cold and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, first of all, 65% of the people in the audience weren't even watching wrestling when WCW was a thing.
True.
Well, they aren't mentioning Sting and TNA, obviously not on TV. Ric Flair did kind of throw that out in one of their little talk shows that they've done on the network leading up to WrestleMania. Ric Flair actually mentioned that to Booker T. You know, he's like, oh, you know Sting. He's been keeping busy down there. That's the only mention that they brought up, though.
Yeah, but again, 65, maybe 70% of the people in the audience weren't even watching wrestling when WCW was a thing. Listen, their window to make a big deal out of that ended probably a good 7, 8, 9 years ago. Okay, that's when they really, back when they resurrected ECW for a little while, and people still, they were whatever. But WCW, it's like, who's still around that was even in ECW or WCW? Okay, you got Big Show. Jericho when he decides to show up once in a while. But beyond those two, who else is there really?
I mean, Ray until he was released.
Right. Ray Mysterio's gone. Okay. Hulk Hogan doesn't wrestle anymore. Ric Flair doesn't wrestle anymore. Buff Bagwell's a male hooker now. It's like Scott Steiner, I don't know what the hell he's doing.
I interviewed Scott Steiner.
Right. So what's he doing right now?
He's wrestling. Currently, he's wrestling on the indies. Not really as much as before. He's not even getting that much shows because he's charging way too much. He did a Manitoba tour for CWE in January. He's not really up to that much.
Well, and honestly, I mean, who wants to hear a 50-something-year-old guy calling himself the big bad booty daddy at this point in his life? Okay,
still wrestling in the indies.
Yeah, I mean, so there's nothing relevant left of WCW to really make a storyline out of this, but yet that's the narrative. You're right. That was the narrative that Stephanie was selling for weeks. And then Sting comes out and just blows that whole thing out of the water and says, no, I'm just here to beat Triple H. Here's my thing. This match would have a lot more intrigue to it if there were some stakes involved. If like something was going to be decided on the outcome of this match, like maybe the Authority loses their power again if Sting wins.
Yeah,
maybe
but
Sting becomes...
that gimmick's blown out of the water.
I guess, but if there was something on this match that made it imperative for Triple H to beat Sting, or made it imperative for Sting to beat Triple H, instead this is a grudge match between two guys that really don't have a beef, do they?
No, I mean, besides that Triple H is a Ric Flair mark and doesn't like Sting, no, not really.
You know what?
Yeah, and what's up, Kev?
I'm going to jump in here. I really didn't have much to contribute to any of the discussion tonight, but thinking about it, on this particular match, one thing that kind of surprises me, and maybe it's just me logically thinking, with Sting showing up and Stephanie starting up the drama that WWE beat WCW, I think one of the angles that she could have taken on this, and I'm surprised she didn't, was, hey, where the fuck were you when Shane bought WCW and I bought ECW and we were trying to take things over? Where were you? Where was our franchise that we paid for? You were gone in the wind. And now, 15 years later, after I've come back and I've made my amends and dominated, and now I'm running things, now you have the balls to show up? Who the fuck are you?
Whoa.
And see that, and that makes for a compelling angle for the 35% of us in the audience that remember WCW. It really does. That's something I would be interested in.
Right.
But when you're looking at all the hand waving, armband wearing John Cena kid fans in the audience who have no idea who Sting is or why they should even care about him, that's why I'm so confused by this. Like, why didn't they just give Sting the Ultimate Warrior treatment where they bring him in, they make him a part of the Hall of Fame, they give him a DVD package, they put him out there on TV and let him cut a couple of meaningful promos and then just ride off into the sunset. Why do they have to bring him in, give him an angle, give him a match with Triple H that we have to watch at WrestleMania now?
To Kev's point, when it comes to Stephanie McMahon complaining that he wasn't there for the alliance and all that stuff, they could have easily just built that off and plugged the WWE Network. For Frank, if you're saying that half, like 60% of the audience has no idea what WCW was or is, or even Kev's point when it came to ECW and WCW invading WWF at the time, they could easily say, oh, well, if you missed, well, if you want to know what we're talking about, just go back and watch it on the WWE Network for only $9.99. Good plug there, and then you keep the feud and the storyline going.
Well, and to your point, let's make no mistake about this. The only reason Vince McMahon signed Sting to a contract was to use him to plug his network. Because a good half of his library is WCW / UWF and all this other stuff. NWA. Yeah, so that's the reason Sting is here today, is because he is a good selling point for that network. Why not just leave it there like they did with Kevin Nash lately? Why not just leave it there like they did with Ultimate Warrior? Why actually give him a match at WrestleMania? Like, that's closing the loop for people, for a select few people in the audience, and everybody else is kind of like, I'm sorry, who's this guy again?
Well, to Sting's credit, I think he can still, is actually in shape and can still wrestle.
Okay, that was going to be my next question. Can he really?
I don't believe so.
He's 56 years old.
I think Triple H is a good wrestler to have in the ring with Sting at this point for him to come back. Because if you think about it, Shawn Michaels, when he had his back injury in 1998, he came back in 2002 and his first opponent was Triple H.
Yeah, but Shawn Michaels wasn't 56 when that happened either.
But he still had a bad back and was afraid of getting back in the ring, and the only man he could trust was Triple H. And that's not as a friendship level, that's as a wrestler and a performance level.
True.
Well, man, ultimately that question is going to get answered tonight, but the one that I'm still searching for an answer for is, why is this match happening?
That I don't have an answer for.
There is no answer for that.
Right. So anyway, all right. Well, let's move along.
By the way, I think everybody has to say, like, Sting's going to win this, right?
He has to.
Yeah. I mean, and then that's the other thing is it's like, and again, I really wish if they were going to do this match anyway that there had been some stipulation attached to it that was like important, like the Authority loses their power for 90 days or something. There needed to be something at stake.
Or how about,
in this
like,
match.
Whoever loses retires? How about that?
Yeah, there needed to be something at stake in this match, and there just isn't. It's just two dudes wrestling for, because reasons. I mean, it's like...
How about the history aspect, though? That we're
there is...
in a WrestleMania, in the WWE ring for the first time. That's history in itself. That's what the main aspect of this match is, in my opinion.
Right.
I mean, I guess, but like the host is saying is, like, that only appeals to anybody who's over 15 years old, and predominantly a lot of WWE fans today are below that.
Yeah, and I would argue that
a lot of the WCW fans, if there were WCW fans, have largely either gone to watch TNA or stopped watching wrestling altogether.
Well, and here what we have is and I would argue that this probably caters to the 30 and over crowd, okay? So what you basically have here is you have two matches on this card, two co-main events, if you will, that are catering to the over 30 crowd when they've spent the last 6 or 7 years cultivating the under 10 crowd.
Yep.
Right? So we've gone PG. John Cena's been the ringleader of that.
Yeah,
I think that's what drives me nuts about WrestleMania the last few years, is they always bring out, I mean, as much as I love The Rock, as much as I love Jericho, as much as I love, like, some of the part-timers they bring back, I mean, every time you do that, you're delaying, one, the talent that you have, and two, you're taking a chance every time that a large part of your fan base just doesn't remember them as fondly as we do. And when you're aiming for the younger fan base, it just doesn't really make sense. And it's like they know that when it comes to WrestleMania time, they rely on us to carry the pay-per-view buys, or the network buys, and it's really frustrating because if you need to bring in the older people for the most important pay-per-view of the year, then shouldn't that be the audience that you're targeting towards? So that every pay-per-view could be like that? But no, that makes too much sense.
Or at least spend your year, giving them something to watch, and then not just trying to cram it all into one event, right?
Maybe.
So, I think we can all agree Sting has to win this match, and that brings me to the World Championship match, and that is Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns. Now, this match made a lot more sense after about Tuesday of this past week, okay? And that is the big mystery surrounding Brock Lesnar up until about Tuesday of this past week is he going to re-sign with WWE? Because his contract was set to expire like either midnight tonight or sometime this week, right? So the question was, is Lesnar going to stick with WWE, or is he going to jump to UFC? Bellator was in the conversation, but I never really gave them any serious consideration. But, is he going to go back to MMA, or is he going to stay with wrestling, or is he just going to go home to his farm and whatever? But he did re-sign with WWE for a multi-year contract, is what I'm hearing this week. So,
yep.
Now, my question to you guys is, does that make the outcome of this match more obvious now?
No, I think it's the other way around. I think, prior to coming into that re-signing, I thought, if Lesnar was leaving, he would, either A, have to be willing to shoot on Reigns and absolutely destroy him for real, like legit, and basically run out of the stadium with the belt if he wanted to do that, or he had to lose. It kind of like Stone Cold when Stone Cold faced The Rock for the third time. Stone Cold, that was Stone Cold's last match. He didn't announce it or anything, but he just kind of lost, and he kind of just faded off into the sunset. It's kind of common courtesy that if you're on your way out, you drop the belt. And I think that's why, a lot of people's opinions changed on this match. I personally listened to a lot of podcasts, and going prior to that signing, everybody was saying Reigns. And like just a few days later, everybody is not sure now. I think Brock re-signing made this match much more interesting.
I have really nothing else to add because Rob echoed everything I was thinking, and he said everything I wanted to say.
Sorry, Nikolai.
No, it's quite all right. I'm just saying I agree with you. Roman Reigns would have been the pick, but when Brock Lesnar re-signed and said that his MMA career is over, he's retired from that he's signed a 3-year contract with WWE, now it made this match even more intriguing and unpredictable, and now there's more of a chance of Brock Lesnar retaining. Doesn't mean that he has the majority popularity vote. It's just that there's more of a chance of him keeping the title.
Frank, do you disagree? Jordan, do you disagree?
You just look at this match and you see Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. And first, I was going for Reigns because we heard everything about Brock Lesnar's contract. But now it's confusing now because now we're hearing that he's signing a multi-year deal and we're hearing all of that. But you look how quickly they pushed Roman Reigns. They pushed him very fast after starting at the Royal Rumble. And the question is, are they just going to give him a super quick push and he's just going to be champion? Or is Lesnar going to retain? I still believe Roman Reigns is going to win the title at WrestleMania.
Oh, well, I look at it this way. I almost wish they had waited till after WrestleMania to announce that Brock Lesnar had re-signed. Because then that really would have thrown a whole, oh my God, what's he going to do? Surely he's going to drop the title, right? So now that if he wins, it's like, wait a minute, why did they let him win if he's leaving? And then they say, oh, by the way, I re-signed, suckers. So to me, it would have been better to wait till after WrestleMania to announce that he had re-signed instead of just coming right out with it. Because now it almost seems to me like a no-brainer that he retains.
I hate to parrot, other material, but a lot of the reasoning behind announcing it the way they did is because they had a golden opportunity to appear on ESPN to sell Mania. And ESPN, by and large, thought Brock was going to announce that he was going back to UFC, and that's the only reason he got that spot. And when he brought up wrestling and that he actually is proud to be the WWE champion on ESPN television and selling Mania, they were shocked and they were surprised, and that was Brock and Vince's idea. So, that's why they did it that way. Yes, you're right. That would be like a cool moment to do it that way, but that's why they did it that way. And to be honest, that way is a little bit more business savvy.
I have to disagree in what you said that it was Brock and Vince's idea. I'm more willing to bet that it was Vince and Paul Heyman's idea.
Yeah, Brock Lesnar doesn't seem to be calling a lot of his own shots these days. And I'm starting to get the sense from Brock Lesnar and WWE that he's just sort of down for whatever. He'll win, he'll lose, he doesn't care. The guy works 10 days a year and gets paid like $2 million for it, or whatever it is.
I do like that Brock Lesnar in that interview said that he re-signed with WWE for multi-years, and when he said that he's having fun and he'd rather entertain than just go straight and fight, that actually made me like him a little bit more. Because, when Brock Lesnar just comes in, he just looks like he comes in and kicks ass and just wants to be there and get paid. But, the fact that he said he's having fun, it actually makes me more intrigued, and I can actually see this match actually being better than I had anticipated.
Well, I look at it this way. Brock Lesnar, first of all, was not going to succeed in UFC. Okay, he just wasn't. The guy, when he first went in there, he was in his early 30s. He trained 5, 6, 7 days a week to do it, and he also caught a break with the timing. He won the title from Randy Couture, who was about 30 pounds underweight and about 5 years past his prime. Okay, so and he was just a bad style matchup for Frank Mir. Shane Carwin should have knocked him out and didn't. Okay. But now you look at UFC today, and it's like, okay, he's got Junior Dos Santos, he's got Cain Velasquez, he's got Fabricio Verdum. He ain't beaten any of those three guys, so he was not going to succeed over there. So from a physical standpoint, the smart money was to go back to WWE, and I have little doubt that he's having fun. Like I said, the guy works 10 days a year and gets paid 7 figures.
Works part-time with full-time pay, his own words.
I would love to work 10, 12 days a year and get paid 7 figures for it.
That's the dream, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. That's fun. That's fun. He does no house shows. The guy
not to mention you get to stand there and have Paul Heyman talk for you. Even that's got to be a joy too.
He does no house shows. Okay. He only shows up on every third pay-per-view. He only shows up on Raw once every 3 months. He never does SmackDown. So it's hell yeah, he's having fun. And he's getting paid 6 figures for that work schedule. He's the luckiest guy on planet Earth, right?
Getting paid full-time for part-time work. The American dream.
He's getting paid full-time for, almost not working at all.
And that's why I really don't want him as the heavyweight champion, because I get it. Being the heavyweight champion for Brock Lesnar, it's a different scenario that we're all getting. And Paul Heyman telling us that we only get to see the champion every now and then because it's an attraction, and it leads more intrigue to when he actually shows up. Yes, that's great. Brock Lesnar is an attraction. The WWE World Heavyweight Championship is not.
Well, and the thing is I agree that I both agree and disagree with Paul Heyman on this. And where I disagree with Paul Heyman, and I know listeners out there are like, who the hell do you think you are disagreeing with Paul Heyman, right? But, I will remind you that Paul Heyman is a failed businessman, okay? He's a great mind, but he's a failed businessman, so he's not always right, okay? And where I disagree with Paul Heyman here is that I think the championship should be defended as an attraction, but the champion should always be seen. Think back to the 80s. Hulk Hogan wrestled maybe once every 3 or 4 weeks, if that. But he was on TV every week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the champion should always be seen. Now, you want to crack at the champ, you got to really earn it. And I think that him wrestling for the title should be an attraction, but he should be there every damned week.
That's right. I agree.
That's my thing. And if Brock Lesnar is just going to be a featured attraction, then okay, that's what Chris Jericho is, right?
Yeah.
The Undertaker is a featured attraction, a very rare featured attraction. You don't see him once a year. Okay. Brock Lesnar, in my mind, hasn't done anything to earn that kind of clout. Chris Jericho wrestled his ass off for 25 years to get that right. Or 20 years anyway. Undertaker wrestled his ass off for 25 years to earn that right. Brock Lesnar wrestled for a couple of years back in the early 2000s. Then he left to go try out for the Minnesota Vikings. Then he spent 3 or 4 years in UFC. And then he comes back, and now he's got the same clout that Undertaker and Chris Jericho have to just make his own schedule. And he gets paid more than they do to do it.
Chris Jericho has actually called himself the reverse Brock Lesnar, because during the whole winter, Chris Jericho has been doing all the house shows and none of the TV.
Yeah, and that's where Chris Jericho gets all the props from me, because this guy's a part-time wrestler, but this dude you're right. For the last 4 or 5 months, he's been wrestling at house shows and not being on TV. And when he was asked why he did that, like, why would you go run the trail again like this? Because that wrestling those house shows all over the country beats the hell out of you. It really does. But he chose that part of the schedule as opposed to just showing up on TV once a week. He chose the hard part of being a part-time wrestler. And they asked him why, and he said, because I love doing this. Right?
And he said there was less demands, and you get more freedom.
Yep. You get to do more things on house shows because you don't have that TV time restrictions in a match. And that's all it is. He's just wrestling matches. He's not doing promos or anything like that. He's wrestling guys like Cesaro, wrestling guys like Bray Wyatt, and all these other guys that he really doesn't have that much of a chance with. But he's just wrestling because he enjoys it.
Yeah, and Brock Lesnar is here for the money. Let's just call it what it is. He's there for the money, okay? If Vince McMahon, and by the way, he stormed out of Raw a couple of weeks ago on a scheduled appearance. He stormed out and left and got on his private plane and left because apparently there was some contract dispute between him and Vince where Vince was going to actually try to pay him less than what he was accustomed to getting for working 10 days a year.
And of course, Brock Lesnar resigned because he had an offer that he couldn't refuse.
Right. In other words, Vince gave him his money. So anyway, bottom line is, how is this match going to end? I don't know. The problem I have with this match, though, is it was entirely tied to what Brock Lesnar was going to do. Roman Reigns is either going to win or lose based on whether Brock Lesnar re-signs this contract. In other words, Brock Lesnar basically got to pick the ending of this match himself.
Which almost worries me. Now that he has re-signed and got an offer he can't refuse, maybe part of that offer was him retaining at WrestleMania tonight.
And again, we'll find out later. But now, I do want to touch on one thing about Roman Reigns before I move on to the last topic for today, and that is this. I keep hearing everybody talking, and one of you guys actually made this comment. Everybody keeps talking about how Roman Reigns got pushed too fast. And I don't know what the proper speed for pushing somebody is, but I want to point out that he's been with the company for a couple of years. Now, I understand he's only been a singles competitor for about a year now, but
not even that.
Think back to, was it 2009 when Sheamus won the WWE Championship like 3 months after joining the company?
Well, 3 months after joining the Raw brand, because he started on ECW, but that didn't last long. Then he's on Raw and wins the WWE title in a semi-botched table spot, which nobody had expected. But yeah, that was his first year in the company. He's WWE champion. You're right, and you look at Roman Reigns, everybody complains that he was pushed and he shoved down their throats. No, because this was the plan since back in August. They had plans of Roman Reigns main eventing or becoming WWE champion. Hell, I will actually go back 2 months prior because he was in the Money in the Bank ladder match for the world title. I was there. That was in Boston. I was at that arena when that match when that pay-per-view happened. And then he had his SummerSlam match with Randy Orton, and then he was supposed to move on to Seth Rollins, but unfortunately he had that hernia and had to get surgery, and that stopped and halted his progress. But back then, they were talking about putting the title on him back then, or not even the title, but giving him that main event rub.
Right, now here's my question.
I gotta disagree. I mean, he's not ready. He never will be ready, and I can't wait for him to win the title so that he can absolutely drop the ball and be de-pushed forever.
I guess time will tell on that one, but again, I asked the question: what is the proper time to develop somebody before they're quote ready? Is Seth Rollins ready right?
How about
now? He's been carrying that brief.
Prior to being launched into the WrestleMania main event, you have more than 5 singles matches under your belt. How about that?
Well, he has more than 5 singles matches his career.
Now that they're at Mania, yes, but prior to winning the Rumble, he did not even have 5 single matches on TV until after Rumble, until after everybody rejected him.
No, he's beating Randy Orton at SummerSlam.
Yeah, but they hurried up and fed him show and everybody else in single matches to hurry up and get him used to the wrestling singles career.
Well, like I said, since August, he was on a slow burn up until this point, but it only looks rushed because he had just come back in December.
Well, let me ask Rob this question, okay? What are you looking for from Roman Reigns to demonstrate to you that he's ready?
How about being able to cut a proper promo? How about actually being over? How about that?
Well, all right. And I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with you, but I am gonna take on those 2 points. Okay, cutting a proper promo. Brock Lesnar cuts no promos, and he's world champion right now.
He doesn't have to, though. I mean, he could if he really wanted to, but he doesn't.
Well, Roman Reigns wouldn't have to either if he had somebody like. I mean, and how about Rusev? He's only recently started cutting promos and not very well at that, but he's United States champion. So Chris Benoit was world champion without having, and he was a lousy promo cutter. Rey Mysterio was never good at cutting promos, and he was a 3-time world champion. It just I don't know so much about the whole promo thing.
For over 10 years and slowly worked their way up through, indies and everything else, and really sacrificed and only earned that spot begrudgingly because they were so over and because they were such a single talent. Reigns has none of that.
Well, and to your point about him not being over, I mean, I don't know. Some crowds boo him, some crowds really love him.
I've never heard a crowd yet really absolutely embrace him. Not one. Not really. Since
prior to the Royal Rumble, they were. Because Roman Reigns, his name is not Daniel Bryan, so that's why he's not getting the proper reaction. And because the crowd is fickle, they want Daniel Bryan, and that's all they ever want, because they didn't get enough of him last year and his run and his rush to the World Heavyweight title picture last year at WrestleMania. But prior to the Royal Rumble, Roman Reigns was getting massive cheers.
Well, and Daniel Bryan, and through no fault of his own, but Daniel Bryan is actually a good example of why you should not let the crowd book the matches. Okay? Everybody shoved Daniel Bryan. I mean, this whole yes movement thing exploded, and as a result, Vince had to change the main event at WrestleMania last year to add him to it, gave him the world title, and then 2 weeks later he was gone for 7 months, 8 months. It just, you can't let the crowd book these matches.
Yeah, but I mean, he was the most over person. He deserved that spot. It's just unfortunate that he had an injury.
Right, and he's still the most over person in the company, but now he's going for the Intercontinental title, which I think at this point is probably appropriate, Yeah.
I disagree.
It's a good consolation prize, in my opinion.
Well, first of all, Daniel Bryan is broken, okay? He is. You can't put the world title back on this guy only to risk him being gone again for 6 more months. It just, we learned that lesson with Dolph Ziggler. Now, Ziggler's been very durable since his last concussion. But for whatever reason, every time they put the world title, every time they put the world title on Dolph Ziggler, it's like the injury fairy hits him. I mean, I don't know what it is, but it's happened to him twice now.
Yeah, but blaming somebody for concussions is not fair.
No, I'm not blaming him for his concussions. I'm merely saying that he has a record of every time they put him in that top spot, something happens to him. And whether you believe in superstition or not, Vince McMahon clearly does.
Which is why Bryan's not in the world title picture this year.
Right, and he may eventually work himself back up to it, but based on our earlier conversation, it doesn't sound like he really cares, does it?
No, he doesn't. I think he knows, why fight the way they see you? I mean, they begrudgingly gave him a spot. He got it. He lived his moment, and he feels content in being a team player. I mean, I can't force the guy to chase after what he deserves, but I mean, that doesn't mean he doesn't deserve better.
Well, some guys are kings and some are kingmakers, okay? I mean, you think back over history. Hulk Hogan, obviously a king of the business, okay? Roddy Piper was a kingmaker. The guy was talented enough to be world champion. He just didn't care. It just wasn't one of his ambitions.
Hey,
I don't think Piper would agree with that. I think they never gave him the belt because they wanted to defeat the Hogan train. Piper would never admit that he didn't request the title.
But is Piper in the Hall of Fame now?
I believe so.
Yes, he is. Is Piper one of the most revered people in the history of the business? Absolutely.
He's not as respected as he should be.
Maybe not by the company, but by the fans, he absolutely is.
Hey guys, I hate to interrupt this, but I mean, at this point, we're kind of digressing a little bit, and Frank, I want to know what the last topic is because I really have to start getting ready and start taking off soon.
The last topic was we were talking about the world title match between Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns and whether Roman Reigns deserves to be pushed. And, I mean, my argument is, yeah, why not?
And, I think we skipped, I don't know if it was by intentions or not, but we skipped Randy Orton versus Seth Rollins.
Yeah, I kind of did intend to skip that. I mean, We can talk about it if you'd like, but it's like, I skipped that match, but I wasn't going to skip Seth Rollins because my next topic was going to be, does Seth Rollins cash in?
Okay, yeah, well, Randy Orton, Seth Rollins, I'm just going to add this comments and then I got to go. This has a potential that me and Rob discussed this a couple of nights ago on the SmackDown Rundown about this could potentially steal the show in terms of work rate and one-on-one matches that these guys could, and even Randy Orton thinks so himself, that this could be a really good match. And I'm just going to say, I like the build-up for this match and the video package that they gave us when Randy Orton was originally part of the Authority and he complained about the future and all this other stuff. But Seth Rollins joining the Authority and this whole feud that they've had with Seth Rollins taking him out, Randy Orton coming back in, suckering Rollins, and I think Orton had beat him up too much too soon for this match to really be that climactic. But as opposed to, other than that, I think this is going to be a good match. And, this is one match that I'm actually anticipating watching front to finish.
And where I disagree with you is I did not like the build-up to this match at all. I really didn't. I didn't like the fact that Randy Orton came out 2 weeks ago and beat the living hell out of Seth Rollins and beat him uncomfortably for a good 10, 15 minutes. Yeah. I didn't dig that at all. I just thought that ruined this match, to be honest with you.
He shouldn't have beat him up that much. He should have gotten maybe his hands on him and a DDT and have Seth Rollins get away. With no J&J security to come down and save him, they should have really savored that moment for tonight.
Not to mention the confusing tease of, is he a heel, is he a baby? That didn't do this feud any favors either.
No, and listen, Randy Orton is better in what we call tweener land anyway. Where he's not he's in business for himself, but he doesn't mind setting things right by doing the right thing once in a while. I like the morally ambiguous Randy Orton more than I like the clean cut face or heel. But what I just did not like him laying waste to Seth Rollins last week on Raw.
I don't like fantasy booking, but wouldn't it have made a whole lot more sense just to debut him as a straight-up babyface? He walks up to Rollins and say, just so you know, I'm going to get to you, and I'm going to get to you, by yourself. And like week after week, he RKO's, the J&J security, takes them out. Then he takes out Kane. Then he takes out Show. And it's just him and Rollins. And just when you think Randy Orton's gonna just absolutely beat the shit out of him, like on the Go Home show, Randy Orton just RKO's him, jumps on the microphone and says, I got you. And not only I got you, but Vince gave me like a steel cage match so the Authority can't interfere.
Yeah, well, I think you would have to save the steel cage match for Extreme Rules. Save the stipulations for the next pay-per-view that's going to continue with all the gimmick matches in the first place. But other than that, I think I'm going to enjoy this match, and I think this is going to be a better, more anticipated match than, say, Bray Wyatt and Undertaker, and maybe Triple H and Sting, just for the work rate alone. But that's all the opinions I got to give. Guys, I've had a really fun time and enjoying this discussion with you, but I got to run. So I'm just going to say, make sure, check out AngryMarks.com and, check them out for everything. Frank will give the full plugs list, but, Rob, Jordan, Frank, thank you. Had a good time, and I'll talk to you guys another time.
See you later.
Thanks a lot, Nick.
Bye.
And actually, I have to run as well. I have a shift work I have in like 40 minutes, but it's been great being back on AngryMarks.com doing this WrestleMania pre-show with you guys. It was a blast, and of course, follow me on Twitter at Jordan J. Garver, and stay tuned on AngryMarks.com. A lot more of Jordan Garver to come. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Jordan.
All right. Thanks a lot, Nick. Thanks, Jordan.
I'm looking forward to the Orton and Rollins match as well. I just kind of anticipating to see what Rollins bust out for a Mania match.
Yeah, and for a pure wrestling match, it's going to be a good one. Orton and Rollins can both bring it. They're both great workers, and they have good chemistry in the ring. I think it's going to be a good match. I think the story around it sucks, but, if you're just into the wrestling angle, then you'll enjoy the match from a work rate standpoint. To me, the only intrigue around this match at all now that we've seen Orton just absolutely destroy Rollins is, does Rollins win the match and then cash in his Money in the Bank contract later? Does he lose this match but then cash in his Money in the Bank contract? Or does he not cash in the contract at all?
He has to win this match, in my opinion. I mean, after that beatdown, he has to win this match. Anything else doesn't make any sense and absolutely buries this kid. Unfortunately, with the dick tweets that were leaked, I mean, it's possible that he could lose his match and continue the losses that he seems to be piling up since that incident. And I don't feel like he'll cash it in on Mania. I feel like that's something that they could conceivably save for the Raw the night after.
Well, and picking up on your thread, if he's going to lose that match to Randy Orton, then he'll have to cash in tonight.
Yeah,
like you said,
either way,
like
this
you
goes,
said, you're burying the kid.
Do.
Yeah, but you're talking about him being buried if he loses this match, not if he cashes in and walks away with a world title. So if he loses this match, he has to cash in. If he wins this match, hold on to it. But again, like with Rusev in his first loss, it's like the longer he holds on to that briefcase, the more awkward it is to try to figure out how to get it off of him.
Yeah, but at this point, that's a little far gone. But I mean, they seem to keep the briefcase longer and longer on these guys. They almost, a couple times they've almost pushed it to Money in the Bank pay-per-view. They've kept it so long on them. I just feel like for whatever reason they've seemed more and more hesitant to pull the trigger on these guys.
Well, it's because they want to do it right. They've made mistakes with this in the past. They made a mistake putting it on Mr. Kennedy once.
Yeah.
And then they had to turn around and get him to hotshot it over to Edge because he had his second wellness violation or he was injured again or whatever it was. But they wound up having to get it off of him creatively by having him in a Money in the Bank contract match with Edge. And it's
don't forget Sandow too.
Right, and Sandow had the Money in the Bank contract and wound up coughing it up. And I remember Cena winning the thing, calling his shot, and then losing the match. So, you have to be careful how you do this thing, but if you wait too long, then you've almost created a whole new problem. And at this point, can anybody see Seth Rollins realistically beating Brock Lesnar in a match?
No.
So he almost has to do the Edge thing and cash it in when Lesnar's laying there bloody, right?
I mean, yeah. I mean, and plus, I think that's the most realistic way out of Brock being champion right now. Because he's beat Cena, he's done that, and I mean, a lot of people think he could beat Reigns. The only way he could lose the title would be somebody like Rollins, where he's weak, or weaker than normal, and is caught off guard to where it's reasonable that he would have to lose. Well,
and we've seen Rollins curb stomp Brock Lesnar before, by the way.
Yeah, I know, and so I think it's the finisher's realistic, and it's kind of a quick move that he could conceivably do when Brock is weak, and that Brock would have a lot of excuses as to why he lost, and he would have every reason to come after him.
Yeah, and after Brock Lesnar laid waste to Undertaker last year, then he destroyed John Cena, and he's destroyed everybody he's wrestled for the last good year now. It's like you almost have to dirty finish that title off of him. Now, the only other outcome I could possibly see is maybe Reigns pulls it out tonight. Maybe they get in this bloody slugfest back and forth. Reigns barely beats him, gets the world title, and then Rollins cashes in and pins Reigns to win it.
That's the way I see it going. That Brock Lesnar is absolutely beating that holy hell out of Reigns. And I mean, kind of like Cena and Lesnar won, where he literally busted Cena open, something like that, where he absolutely demolishes him, and Reigns maybe hits a spear real quick out of nowhere or something like that, and just kind of pulls it out by the seat of his pants. Right. But he's such a dirty mess that Rollins just comes in and just cleans his clock.
And incidentally, I've had many conversations over the last few weeks leading up to WrestleMania, and I think you may be the only person I've talked to besides myself who even remembers that John Cena actually won that first match with Brock Lesnar.
Well, that's because they've kind of buried that to history, but I refuse to let WWE determine what I'm going to remember and what I'm not.
Exactly. All right, so really there's only one other thing to talk about, and that is when, where, and how does The Rock show up tonight? Because he's going to. Is that
fact? Is that basically?
I don't have anything to base it on. I'm just guessing because nobody had a clue. Nobody had a clue that he was going to be there last year, and he opened the freaking show.
Well, the only way he would show up would be if Brock goes over. And that would be the next WrestleMania main event, Rock versus Brock.
And I keep hearing that. I've been hearing that for 2 years.
Or maybe setting up for SummerSlam or whatever. But I mean, that's the only way that happens. Maybe what they could do, if you want, if WWE sticks to their guns and gives the belt to Reigns, like they seem to really want to, have Reigns win, have Rollins cash in Money in the Bank, and have, Brock kind of beside himself that he came up short and he's like freaking out backstage, and like maybe he attacks a couple people and then Rock comes in and sticks up for like the small people and basically calls him out for being a bully, and that kind of sets it up from there. They could do it without the belt.
You know what I almost think could happen tonight? Think about this for a minute. Roman Reigns is the one wrestling Brock Lesnar, right?
Right.
What if Rock helps him win the match? There've been these teasers out there for a while now that Roman Reigns was going to
Brock and Reigns.
Well, but there have been these little teasers out there for a while now that Roman Reigns might be turning heel, and there have been these teasers out there that Brock Lesnar may be turning face.
I mean, he is babyface, you ask me.
And who gives a crap? The Rock is one of those rare people. He's one of 2-3 people at most in the history of this business that can get away with doing almost anything and not lose his audience, right? So what if he goes out there and he helps?
Rock would want to do that, whether he thinks that might hurt his box office draw. That's the only thing where it get a little iffy. I'm not saying that that's the case, but you never know.
I think 10 years ago, Rock made a concerted. He made a deliberate decision to stay away from WWE, like disavow himself of it. He was so adamant about disavowing himself of the wrestling business that he even lost like 30, 40 pounds just so he wouldn't look like a wrestler anymore. You go back and watch some of his movies in the mid-2000s, like The Game Plan and even The Gridiron Gang. You go back and watch some of those movies, he had slimmed down considerably from his wrestling weight. Like, he was still a cut dude, but he just looked like a guy who goes to the gym 3 days a week. He didn't look like The Rock anymore, right? And when he inducted his family in the Hall of Fame, I think it was in 2007, he looked almost emaciated. I mean, it was ridiculous to see this guy like doing his old catchphrases because he just didn't look like himself anymore. But that's how dedicated he was back then to making sure he kept those two worlds separated, because he was dedicated to being a Hollywood movie star, a box office draw, and he didn't want anything to jeopardize that. I think he's reached a point in his movie career now, though, where he can do whatever the hell he wants in wrestling, and it ain't going to matter to his box office viability. He's back to doing his action flicks now. People are still going to plunk down their $12 to see him in Fast and Furious 14, okay, regardless of whether he's wrestling or not. In fact, I would argue that would actually enhance his box office draw. You know, it's like Brock Lesnar went on ESPN to talk about re-signing with WWE. The Rock is going to go to WWE to get, to sell tickets to his movies. So I could see him coming back tonight and helping Roman Reigns win this title.
That's interesting. I haven't heard that yet. I mean, so that's interesting.
That's just me spitballing, but he did show up, a few weeks back. I mean, just out of nowhere to get Roman Reigns over with the crowd. It kind of backfired in the moment, but The Rock has been around this angle.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I'm just, like I said, I listen to lots of podcasts. You're the first one to bring up that particular scenario.
Well, and I want to make a disclaimer to our audience right now. I have no inside information on this, okay? None whatsoever. I don't have backstage passes to WrestleMania. I'm not even in Santa Clara. I'm in Puerto Rico. I'm just a fan who watches the show and tries to put the puzzle pieces together. And it makes sense that they would try to work The Rock in, especially if the rumor is true that he and Brock Lesnar are slated for next year. So, for whatever it's worth. And in the meantime, Rob, that's all I've got. Do you have anything else you want to say?
Just that the thing that I'm looking forward to the most come WrestleMania weekend is the few days after, when history repeats itself and the closer to the Hall of Fame dies. Yes! No more Kevin Nash. No more Kevin Nash. No more Kevin Nash.
Love it. All right, well, let's go ahead and bring in Killer Kev. I believe he had a few parting comments he wanted to make.
Yes, I did want to do a few parting shots here before we get out of here. First of all, very happy birthday today to the original Angry Marquette herself, Danny D'Adamo. She couldn't be here to join us today because she is off partying and having fun, but I wanted to make sure to get a shout out and wish her a happy birthday. It is absolutely Danny Mania today. And the other
Happy birthday to our resident Joycey girl.
And the other is just to remind our lovely Angry Marks Network listeners and family and friends that it's not too late to join WrestleWork. Our title sponsor here for WrestleMania month. WrestleWork is our social networking community where wrestling fans, promoters, and even people in the business can join together to create, share, and love professional wrestling. It's free to sign up. Do it now. Do it tonight. Do it in between the time you're listening to this podcast and you start watching WrestleMania. You're going to find a whole new community of people to share your experiences with. WrestleWork.com is the place to go.
Amen. Thank you, Kev. And as always, go to AngryMarks.com, read all the print products, listen to all the podcasts, and feel free to support us if you feel led to do so. We work very hard to bring you all the latest in wrestling and MMA news